Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week I sit down with guests to talk about a Disney Plus offering of their choosing. This show is made possible entirely by the support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, so if you like the show and can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it. But if you can't, no big deal. The fact that you're listening is awesome, and of course, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the show with your friends. Joining me today, I have nobody. It is another solo show here, as I'm kind of throwing it together last minute before it has to go live tomorrow morning. Just got busy with the weekend and the 3-hour podcast I recorded yesterday on Final Fantasy VII Remake. So short show this week. I'll really try and start getting guests lined up for future episodes. But this show, I'm going to be talking about Disney Insider. It's a Disney Plus original show. I watched specifically the first episode because I was just kind of scrolling through, and it caught my eye as like, that seems like I was a huge fan of the Imagineering story, which is kind of the behind the scenes documentary stuff about Disney. And the description of this was, Disney Insider peels back the curtain of the Walt Disney Company like never before. Tune in each week as the series takes viewers behind the movies, theme parks, destinations, music, toys, and more. Each episode offers 3 unique stories that capture the magical moments and heartfelt storytelling that is Disney. So seeing that and knowing how much I really enjoyed the Imagineering story, I was like, okay, I'll hop in and just kind of see what this show's a little bit about. The I don't know if it's as appropriate or whatnot, but the like IMDb description for the show is basically something much more akin to a series that's focused on the women of Disney or something like that. So and this episode certainly highlights 3 kind of female-centric stories, but having not watched the other episodes of the series, I don't know if that is a continuation and that's really what they're trying to drive at here, or if it is just kind of, it happens to be women-centric for this first show. If so, I'm all for that because I would love to see those kinds of stories spotlighted more. So yeah, it's just kind of a quick little like 20-minute episode kind of thing. It's releasing weekly right now on Disney Plus. I don't know how many they have lined up for the first season, but they've got 3 out there as of this recording. And yeah, so the first episode I looked at here is titled Aloha Idol, Singing Stargirl, and Creating Onward. It's basically, those are the more or less the 3 segments of the this episode in particular. So it's originally released in the history lesson of things. Originally released on March 20th, 2020, so just a few weeks back, about a month ago, I guess now. Like I said, runtime's about 20 minutes. In the other releases at the time, pretty much everything else that they're putting out on Disney Plus right now, just kind of random new programming that they have. And then yeah, it's in the Disney timeline of things, it is one of the Disney Plus original offerings that are currently releasing as I speak. The roll call on this, it's a documentary series, so there's not too much to speak from here. The segment director listed in the credits here, this is the first one I've done where I couldn't just go to IMDb for like the episodic, like here's who's on this thing, because the IMDb page for this is very sparse. It basically just has episode titles and that's about it. But the segment producer, as listed in the credits, is a man by the name of Kurt Schmidt. No idea what else he may have worked on. There were a few Kurt Schmidts in the IMDb credits, but I can't pinpoint which one this one in particular is, so I'm not going to try and attribute anything else to him that might not be his. Documentary, so there's not really a writer behind it. And then the segments for this one in particular are starring, for the Aloha Idol segment, stars Katy Perry talking about American Idol filming in Hawaii. And there are little, the current American Idol kind of crew is out there with her for that. And so Ryan Seacrest and Lionel Richie make kind of appearances in their little segment. Then the middle segment of the show is featuring Grace Vanderwaal, who is Stargirl. She plays the kind of the titular character in the recently released on Disney Plus like original movie Stargirl. Musician, kind of. This is like seems to be her first real role, but she's been doing like little folksy ukulele music and stuff for the last few years. She has like a handful of musical guest appearances on like the late night show circuit kind of thing. And then the final segment is featuring Corey Ray, who's a producer for Onward. She was an associate producer back on Monsters Inc. and The Incredibles for Pixar. She was a pre-production producer on Up, and then she went on to be the producer of Monsters University and the aforementioned Onward. So yeah, not really much in the way of trivia for this this series. Like I said, it's really just kind of a 20-minute. Hey, here are some things we're doing. And none of these are going to have their own dedicated behind the scenes features. So Disney seems to have just kind of thrown some kind of camera crews out there to a whole bunch of their projects and kind of, hey, let's get some footage, have a lot of talking heads to the camera, and then put together a little bit of a story here. So it's a cool little thing. Interesting stories that are being told. Katy Perry kind of talks about how she loves being on American Idol and getting to kind of encourage the people who are taking that leap and putting themselves out there for the show. And the fact that she's recording this from having been flown out to Hawaii, I'm sure she was quite happy to do that too. And they kind of like interview some of her. They interview the showrunner who kind of talks about how great Katy Perry is to work with, and Katy Perry kind of talks herself about how she's not she's done the pop star thing and it was great, and now she loves that she has the opportunity to try and kind of be a cheerleader for new people in the industry. She talks about how when she was coming up, she really had to rely on she very much put in the work herself, but she wouldn't have gotten anywhere without a few cheerleaders kind of being in key positions to help really put a spotlight on her and help her make the connections and break through some of the barriers that she needed to break through. So cool little segment there. Then moving on into the middle segment, Grace Vanderwaal. It's largely all of these are basically promo segments for the things that they're on and promoting. So it is a promo segment of like, hey, here's a cool little 6 to 7 minute segment about American Idol. Watch American Idol on ABC. The Stargirl segment here, Stargirl having been one of the recent original movie releases on Disney Plus. It's basically the star Grace Vanderwaal kind of giving a little bit of like character synopsis of who she plays in the film and what the film's about and what the story's about, because it's based on a book, either a book or a book series. So she kind of talks a little bit about that, and then other people involved kind of talk about one of the songs in particular that really resonates with a lot of them, and how it's kind of the central featurette of Stargirl. And it's something that I've seen Stargirl being promoted on Disney Plus and on social media and stuff like that, but I hadn't actually bothered to sit down and watch it. But watching this has me more intrigued, because this, more than anything else, introduced the idea to me that Stargirl is a musical and there is a musical component to it. So it's like, oh, that seems like something up my alley. So maybe that's something I'll sit down and watch for a future That Deep Plus show. And then finally the segment about making Onward, basically featuring Corey Ray, who's one of the producers for Onward. She sits down with Dan Scanlon, the director of Onward, and they kind of talk about how they created the film based off of going into a story room where they walk into the story room and there's basically nothing on the walls, and they kind of talk about how the process is, you get a whole bunch of writers in this room with nothing out there, and you basically sit in this room and create the story out of nothing, and you fill up the walls with ideas and beats and stuff like that. And so they talk about how the ideas, and we talked a little bit about this in last week's episode about dedicated to Onward. They talk about how Dan Scanlon really kind of drew inspiration from his own upbringing. He and his brother lost their father when they were very young, and so it was kind of like how they kind of coped with that, and how they grew up as a result of that. And Corey Ray there is kind of she has a similar kind of not a directly parallel background, but she talks about how much like in Onward there was the family relationship between like the brothers. She had basically a sister who kind of served that similar role for her, and so she could very much relate to that dynamic. They have some fun little sequences where they kind of show it to prepare for the animatics of like the dad walking around with just pants and basically no torso and stuff. They got people like Dan Scanlon to dress up wearing pants and then in like a green screen suit, and they kind of like walked around and did like performance capture to kind of model what the idea would be of the dad not being able to express himself with anything other than his legs. So there's some fun little vignettes which you see clearly were influenced or were heavily influenced for the film, because like there's a sequence of him doing the dance that the dad ultimately does in Onward, and so yeah, it was a cool little behind the scenes featurette for Onward as well, kind of talking about how that story came to be and some of the work that went into coming up with the ideas. One of the other people they talked to is like one of the editors for the film, and they talk about kind of how the editor's challenge comes in. You've got all these great ideas that Pixar is putting out there and working to animate and take from kind of the original storyboards to the animatics and stuff, and really figuring out when is it appropriate to say, okay, we don't need this scene, we can cut this out, or let's focus on and expand this other scene. So yeah, a little cool little, just again, little like 5-minute, 10-minute, none of these I think crack 10 minutes, because the whole episode's like 17 or 18 minutes, so it's all like 6-7 minute featurettes about their respective things. So it was a cool little thing, nice little kind of thing to throw on kind of while I grab dinner or something tonight. So check it out if you're like a fan of behind the scenes stuff. I'll certainly kind of throw on some of the other episodes that are out there, because I like kind of hearing those human stories behind the Disney things that I enjoy. So yeah, check that out. In terms of kind of the grades, the report card, I would give this maybe a B. It's always weird kind of grading the documentary stuff where it's like they're interesting stories, but they are as much promotion for the other things that they're trying to sell you on as they are behind the scenes stories of Katy Perry. It does. We don't spend enough time with any of these kind of subjects to really dive into a significantly compelling story, it would seem. So whereas a longer form documentary would, I think, serve some of that storytelling better. But for what it is, it's solid. It's a B. That's where I'm going to throw that for this week. Extra credit if you like this, or if you sit down and watch Disney's Insider and are looking for some other stuff. Of course, the Imagineering story, which I talked about and we've done an episode on, that's out there. One Day at Disney Shorts is another one that Disney Plus recommends. Disney's Fairy Tale Weddings special. That came up when I was just kind of like trying to scroll through and figure out what I wanted to sit down and watch for this quick thrown together episode, and I was like, oh, Fairy Tale Weddings, yeah, like that could be a cool little like reality series of hearing the ins and outs of putting together your like magical Disney wedding. So maybe I'll check that out too. Yeah, Frank and Ollie, which has come up I think when we did the Imagineering story. That is a documentary about some of the early era Disney animators, Frank and Ollie. You have Waking Sleeping Beauty, another kind of early golden era of Disney documentary. Decorating Disney Holiday Magic. I almost swapped and just like went to do that one because I was like, I wonder what that's like. And I imagine it is focusing on like, hey, this is what it looks. This is the work that goes into making Disneyland ready for the holidays and stuff like that. But so maybe I'll throw that one on for another future one-off. One-person episode, and then you have a couple that round out the recommended 8 from the Marvel side of things. You have Marvel Hero Project, which is a weekly series where they kind of look at people who are being like real life heroes, and then Marvel Assembling a Universe, which is one that I actually watched like back when Disney Plus first came out, I think, and it's basically another little 20 to 25 minute little documentary series about putting together the MCU. Basically has, little discussions and conversations with people all across the Marvel Cinematic Universe, putting that together and building the massive thing that they've built. So yeah, that's the extra credit for this episode. Nothing really for me in extracurriculars. I've been throwing on more of the new DuckTales. I've finished watching the new DuckTales, everything that's been out there so far, the first couple seasons, and I'm just enjoying like throwing it on as something in the background when maybe I'm playing Final Fantasy VII or something like that. So I still need to get together some people for an episode dedicated to that series because it's a real good series. So check that out. And yeah, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you for joining me for this to kind of run through a little bit of what Disney Plus is doing with Disney Insider. It was a cool little thing, I thought. Check it out if you got 20 minutes to kill, or you want to throw something on in the background, or I guess really what it would be more appropriate would be look through it on Disney Plus and look and see if any of the 3 segments which kind of make up the title of each episode, if any of those segments look interesting or appealing to you, and you can go hop in and watch it. No, you're not going to waste too much time, even if you don't like it or something like that. It's just kind of a 20-minute in, out, you're done kind of thing. So yeah, maybe check it out. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. So I don't really have anything to plug at the moment. I'm going to be working, hopefully, still on putting together. I've got a few reviews kind of in the hopper that I want to put together. Final Fantasy VII Remake being the number 1, and then also Doom Eternal and possibly even Animal Crossing New Horizons. If you do want, you can, until I get the review for Final Fantasy VII Remake out, we have our last 2 episodes of That Nerdy Site show are completely dedicated to Final Fantasy VII Remake. The episode from this week, as of this recording, was a 3-hour spoiler cast where Cameron, myself, and Brandon Gann sat down and talked about all things spoilerific about the game. But if you haven't beaten the game yet, or you don't want to dive into spoiler stuff yet, Cameron and I kind of did a spoiler-free impressions of the game the week earlier, prior to us beating it. So that is out there as well for you. So yeah, you can follow everything that we're doing over at That Nerdy Site, or thatnerdysite.com. If you would like to be on this show, please go to thatnerdysite.com/D+guest and fill out a little Google form there to let me know what Disney Plus offering you would like to sit down and chat about, and I will try and go through some of those and get in touch and reach out and bring people on. We had Steven Weber on a couple weeks ago. We had Joe, Mr. Bad Bit, on last week talking about Onward, and it's been nice kind of bringing new people into the fold for this show. So I just need to really find the time to get people scheduled and bring them on when the world isn't as crazy busy as it sometimes can be these days. So yeah, that's going to do it. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the thing with all your friends and all that good stuff. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always help support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you for joining me. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.